In 2009, on the outskirts of Albuquerque, New Mexico, a woman was walking her dog across a patch of desert land. The ground was dry, quiet, and empty, or so it seemed. As her dog sniffed around, something caught her eye. It looked like a bone sticking up through the dirt. At first, she thought it belonged to an animal, but when police arrived, they quickly realized this was no animal bone. It was human, and that single discovery would lead investigators to one of the most disturbing crime scenes in American history. Over the next weeks, the desert began to give up its secrets. 11 women were found buried in shallow graves, along with the unborn child of one victim. All of them had disappeared between 2001 to 2006, and to this day, no one has been convicted for their murders. This is the chilling story of the West Mesa Murders and the mysterious figure the press calls the Bone Collector. To understand the case, you first have to understand the setting. Albuquerque in the early 2000s was a city battling poverty, drug addiction, and crime. For many vulnerable women, especially those struggling with homelessness or substance abuse, the streets of East Central Avenue became both a place of survival and danger. It was here that many of the victims were last seen. Families reported them missing. Some were mothers, some daughters. One was just 15 years old. But too often, their cases didn't get the urgent attention they deserved. Many of these women were labeled as high risk. To the system, they were often dismissed, but to their families, they were loved. And every disappearance left a hole in someone's life. Between 2001 to 2006, one by one, these women vanished. Their names included Monica Candelaria, Michelle Valdez, Victoria Chavez, Cinnamon Elks, and Solania Edwards, a teenager who had run away from Oklahoma only to end up in Albuquerque. Some of their families put up posters. Others searched the streets themselves. But without answers, they lived in a nightmare of uncertainty. Then came that February day in 2009. The dog walker's discovery launched one of the largest forensic digs New Mexico had ever seen. Heavy machinery rolled into the West Mesa, police tents went up, and crime scene investigators began combing through the earth inch by inch. Day after day, more bones surfaced. By the time the digging stopped, the tally stood at 11 women and one unborn child. A secret graveyard in the desert. But the desert had kept its secrets for years. Satellite photos later revealed that soil disturbances and even tire tracks had been visible as far back as 2003, which meant while families were desperately searching for their daughters, their bodies were already buried in shallow graves just outside the city. The investigation quickly turned toward one terrifying conclusion. This was not random. This was the work of a serial killer. The first name on police radar was Lorenzo Montoya. Montoya lived less than 3 miles from the burial site. He had a long history of violence against sex workers. In December 2006, Montoya contacted a young woman online. He lured her to his home, but things went wrong. Neighbors reported hearing a struggle. The woman's boyfriend arrived at the house, and in the chaos, Montoya was shot and killed. After that night, the disappearances seemed to stop. For many investigators, that detail was too powerful to ignore. The timeline matched, the location matched, Montoya's history of violence matched. Could he have been the bone collector? And yet, no physical evidence has ever tied him directly to the West Mesa graves. No DNA, no personal belongings, no clear proof, only suspicion. Another name surfaced, Fred Reynolds. A known pimp in the Albuquerque area, Reynolds was said to have known at least one of the missing women. He too died in 2009, right before the mass grave was uncovered. But once again, investigators found nothing concrete linking him to the crime scene. This left police with a haunting possibility. What if the West Mesa wasn't the work of one man? What if multiple predators were using the desert to hide their crimes? The idea is terrifying, but investigators can't rule it out. The biggest challenge? Evidence. The women had been buried for years. By the time they were uncovered, only skeletons remained. Any DNA the killer might have left behind was gone. The desert wind, the heat, the rain, nature had stripped away nearly every clue. Even the tire tracks captured in old satellite images were too generic to match to a vehicle. It was like chasing a ghost. Still, detectives have refused to give up. They have interviewed hundreds of people, followed countless leads, and even turned to new technology like forensic genetic genealogy, hoping that one day a clue might emerge. For the families, the discovery was both an ending and a beginning. At last, they knew the fate of their loved ones, but with no one held accountable, the wound remained open. Every year, they gather at memorials to honor the women. They read names, place flowers, and remind the world that these women mattered. They were not just victims of circumstance. They were people with dreams, with families, with lives worth remembering. As of today, the West Mesa murders remain unsolved. Lorenzo Montoya remains the strongest suspect, but without proof, the case cannot be closed. For Albuquerque, the story still casts a long shadow, a reminder that someone, perhaps more than one person, once hunted vulnerable women in the city and got away with it. 11 women, an unborn child, a desert graveyard that held its secret for years. So, who was the bone collector? Was it Montoya, whose death mysteriously coincided with the end of the killings? Or was it someone else, still out there, still unknown? Until the truth comes out, the sands of Albuquerque will continue to hold their silence. What do you think? Was Montoya the killer? Or is the real bone collector still out there, hidden in plain sight? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more true crime mysteries.